strength or speed, fighting power or physical prowess, powerlifting or martial arts. The dichotomy of a lot of people is that they think they have to choose between one or another. You might have to, but I offer you this question: why not choose both? Now, before we get started, for those of you who don't know, my name is Rick Goodman. I'm the creator of Vexick Fitness, and I'm on a journey to create a strong society by building strong individuals. If that interests you, then make sure to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more great content like this coming up to you in the future. So, let's dive into it. Now, before we get started, I will admit I actually haven't done martial arts in a while, not consistently at least. I've mainly been focusing on just powerlifting because that's my goal at the moment. I'm trying not to fatigue myself, especially with the line of work that I've been doing. A lot of it's been a lot of physical labor these last few months. And also because I don't really have the funding at the moment to integrate martial arts as much as I'd like into my routine. But at the height of my training for the last couple of years, I was able to balance both of these two particular topics with each other for quite a while. And I think I actually gained a lot of progress in doing so. And I think you could do the same. So, when it came to this, I had started powerlifting. You already probably know my story. I started powerlifting with my friend Sebastian and Dominic a few years ago. And, well, I originally started training with my friend Matt a few years ago during the COVID lockdowns. Holy shit, that was almost 5 years ago. Anyways, during that time, I came across a lot of incredible people, and we tried to focus on all different types of things, not just strength training. We did martial arts, we did calisthenics, we did running, cardio, all that kind of stuff, which was redundant, but you get the idea. A couple years into the lockdown, I was reintroduced to Sebastian, who started talking to us about powerlifting, and it really got my interest. At the time, I was making enough money, and I had Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off, or at least I had Saturday and Sunday off, but I was working like 10 hours a day, Monday through Thursday. And I was able to train 5 days a week, doing weightlifting, and then on the weekends, usually about once a month, sometimes twice, I would train with my coach, B. His name is also Joshua Fatchman. You can follow him on Instagram, shout out B. And he would professionally train me on the weekends. There's plenty of videos of me doing old sparring footage or pad work with him, so I definitely recommend go checking those out. What he would have me do, he had me strength train a little bit, and B would also mainly have me running because as fighters, it's very imperative that we keep our cardio up so that we can last as long as possible during the fight without getting tired or fatigued. Now, he would also have me do very intricate, very specific moves. In my case, he knew me for a while, so that was the reason why he had me doing so many different things when it came to Muay Thai. And when I did all of that training, I realized that since it's professional training and he's focusing on just me, which by the way is typically more expensive, if you look into getting personal training, then keep that in mind. I realized because fighting is more about the actual skill than it is about just training itself. It's more so you're refining your skill as much as possible, and you're using pads, bags, and sparring partners to do that. You don't have to go as much, in my opinion, if you've gotten to a certain point. I've done Muay Thai for about 9 years on and off, closer to 8.5 on and off. And throughout that entire time, I became really good with Muay Thai specifically. I've done shadow boxing, which you can do at home. I've done visualizations where you fight an imaginary opponent. I've done other types of visualizations where you just go over your pad work. I've even had dreams about doing a class where I was hitting a pad and hitting combos. And then obviously there's bag work where you try to train with the heavy bag or speed bags to keep your endurance up, at least with the speed bag, and to get stronger punching power when it comes to the heavy bags. That being said, I think martial arts is actually very easy, relatively speaking, to integrate into this training regimen. That also being said, powerlifting taxes your nervous system. You might experience adrenal fatigue if you're doing it a lot, especially if your body's not used to it. Add one thing on at a time. If you want to do powerlifting, say twice a week, and Muay Thai 3 to 4 times a week, but the training is only about an hour, hour and a half, then I would definitely recommend focusing on just Muay Thai for a bit. if you want to strength train and you already have the skill for Muay Thai specifically, but for martial arts, I would suggest, especially since people like me were doing powerlifting competitions, to not fatigue yourself so much. Ask your coach, hey, is there a way that I can integrate, if you have a coach, is there a way I can integrate doing powerlifting with martial arts here? And if they say no, then oh well, you might just have to find another coach, or you might just have to focus on one for a while. But I would suggest doing powerlifting about 4 to maybe 5 times a week, and then on your rest days, you can practice a little bit with boxing or kicks. You can practice on the weekends like I did, just for a couple hours, maybe an hour, and get in some really intense training, because when you do that, you get way more out of that one session than just passively going to the class and just hitting bags regularly. Depends on how good the coach is, by the way, so keep that in mind. It's different for everybody. With my coach, Seb, he specifically left me enough room to do training with both my powerlifting and martial arts without tiring myself out too much. I did also want to go out, so I had to take that into consideration. And a lot of the time, you might get way too exhausted to do all of that. I will admit, there is a limit to how much you can do everything. You can expand that limit, but there is ultimately a limit. Cardio is one of the best things you can do, and endurance, any type of endurance workouts are the best things you can do to ensure that you can last as long as possible, especially if you're going out and walking around like my friends and I were doing, or if you're going to clubs, if you're standing a lot at any type of event, you're going to parties, whatever. Make sure that you are taking care of yourself and that you rest when needed. You want to make sure you're getting 8 hours of sleep every night. Go to sleep at the same time and wake up, which is more important in my opinion. Wake up at the same time every day. And take a little bit of time on the weekends if you want to follow my old routine. Spend the week doing powerlifting and take the weekends to do a little bit of martial arts. But if you're doing that, do the martial arts intensely with precision and intent, because that's how you'll make sure that you get the most out of it. Now, as I said before, martial arts can very much be done mentally. That's one of the reasons why I mainly train with powerlifting. And also keep in mind that a lot of gyms have bags, unless you're going to Planet Fitness, but we're not talking about them. The Weenie Hut Gym. But you want to make sure, if you want to do bags, just hit the bag for about 3 to 5 minutes after each routine. Don't tire yourself out too much. Just make sure that you're getting in some good combos and then just go on from there. It is possible to balance both of these things. It might take a lot of effort and it might take a while to do these properly without getting too fatigued, especially if your job is already pretty physical. But when you do this, you will realize that you can become so much more than you ever thought possible. And you can do a lot more than you thought possible. You can become a very dangerous human being, which is very key to succeeding in life, I believe. Now, with the visualizations, there's about 3 key ones that I like to do. The first one is that I like to do visualizations where I'm sparring or analyzing a previous sparring match with a certain opponent. I actually like to very much mentally visualize that I'm sparring Matt and how he usually fights, because he fights in southpaw, so it's kind of difficult to fight him. It says both of our legs are forward. It's really weird. So I like to imagine I'm sparring somebody like him. It could be anybody you think of. It could be somebody you hate. It could be somebody you like. It could be just an opponent, imaginary. It can even be yourself. Hell, imagine you're fighting like an evil clone of yourself. When you do that, in the book Psycho-Cybernetics, there was a study done where they took 3 different groups for basketball. One didn't practice at all, one practiced physically, the other practiced mentally, and the group that practiced mentally basically got the same amount, just a little bit less, but the same score as the group that practiced physically. This is because your mind is a very powerful thing, and when you go over these things a lot in your mind, it's almost as if you're getting extra reps in without having to fatigue your body too much. And it's really cool when you think about it that way, because imagine it's like you're playing a video game, but you're the main character and you're fighting using your own skills that you built up. That's how I like to look at it, at least. The second visualization is I just simply like to go over pad work that I've done before. I like to perfect my form when I'm kicking or sparring, and I like to imagine that I'm just hitting the pads the way I did before, and try to critique anything that my coach might have pointed out that I did improperly or that I could do better each time. This is very key for when you're doing pad work, especially if your classes are a lot like mine, because then it gets you a lot better at pad work, and when you're better at pad work, you can train a lot more advanced moves without having to practice purely on a sparring partner. The last thing when it comes to visualization, and I do consider it still visualization, is you're doing shadow boxing, where all you're doing is you're just hitting the air and imagining that you're fighting an opponent and you're doing certain moves like ducking underneath, you're hitting certain blocks, you're jabbing, you're countering, you're doing all kinds of things that you would do against an actual opponent without having to deal with the stress and damage of injuring yourself with an actual opponent, or by overstressing your body too much. You can work on foot movement. You can make sure that everything you're practicing mentally works physically as well. And all this stuff very much helps. I cannot emphasize how much it helps. A lot of this might seem woo-woo, BS, whatever. You know what? If you don't believe it, then don't believe it. But it works. But I believe that. Psycho-Cybernetics, one of my favorite books. I very much integrated that type of learning into my training because I think it really helps, truly. And I became a way better sparring partner, or way better at sparring without having to actually go through the pain of sparring, hundreds of times. And I can practice even when I'm not I can practice when I'm waiting in line. I can practice when I'm driving. I can practice, thinking about it when I'm just daydreaming because I'm at some boring meeting, which we don't even have to be at because there's no point in me being there, but I digress. and I think it's a very key thing that a lot of people can keep up with without having to fatigue their bodies too much. So to conclude with this, I think it is very possible, but it's probably going to take some time and effort to do so, to mix martial arts with powerlifting, or mix any type of hybrid exercises to come. In the future, I'll probably do a guide on my personal split and how I will do a hybrid. I will do hybrid workouts because I do intend to take up gymnastics this year. I do intend to keep up with powerlifting and do competitions this year. And I also do intend to get back into martial arts this year because I love martial arts and I think it's one of the best things that you can do for yourself as a person. That being said, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to like and subscribe and leave me any comments down on what you think about this topic. Did I do it properly? Did I say the right things or no? So if that interests you, then make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and we will see you in the next one. Peace.